of the Philippines. My dear teacher participants, please join me welcome Mr. Wendell G. Morales. Sir?
Good afternoon po.
Take it away, sir. Loud and clear from our end.
Yes po. Good afternoon po to all the teachers. Good day po. And let me share my screen lang po.
Go ahead, sir. You are being allowed by our technical working group.
Ayan po. Again po, good day to the dynamic teachers of SDO Caloocan and also to the SDO officials. Good afternoon po. I am tasked to share with you some facilitation strategies we can use in our online classes. Now, my presentation is divided into 3 parts. The first one is the introduction of some strategies in conducting online lesson proper. The next one are the benefits and challenges of using the strategies. And the third one are the tips in conducting online lessons. Now, to start off with the introduction of some strategies in conducting lesson proper. Now, when I saw this on Facebook a week ago, I remembered the first time I teach online classes. Now, if I may just share my experience, some years ago, when I was teaching in a private university, they launched a distance education program for their undergraduate and graduate students who are working. And I was one of the instructors who have given teaching loads which were conducted online. This picture actually summarizes all the reactions of the first-time students. So, gulat. Tsaka, yun ang madalas sila sinasabi, mas marami pa yung activity kaysa na-discuss. So teaching online was hard at first because of this reason. We have limited time for synchronous class discussion and class activities. And imagine we will be doing this in the basic education where DepEd provided a maximum screen time for learners. It will be quite a challenge for us to give enough information and clarifications to students for 1 hour. For them to accomplish a week-long module. Along with this challenge of limited time, we have to conduct the online classes. Making the class student-centered is also a challenge. This limited class hours may affect our approach in making our students actively involved in the discussion, apply their learning, and give timely feedback. Now, this slide depicts the traditional face-to-face classes, which mostly follows the following scheme. So we have the teacher-student interaction and discussion inside the classroom, and then give homework assignments or projects to be done at home to ensure comprehension. Considering we only have 1 hour per week to discuss the content of the module or achieve the required competencies for each week, I think the strategy will not be appropriate or may not work. But what can we do? So we will now introduce you to the model called the flipped classroom. Some of you may know this, especially kanina yung mga elementary teachers. But how will we do this in an online setting? Now, first, what is this flipped classroom? This is the reverse of the more common practice of introducing new content at school, then assigning homeworks and the projects to be completed by the students independently at home. In a flipped classroom, students are encouraged to prepare for lessons prior to class. Remember po, students are encouraged to prepare for the lessons prior to your online classes. This may involve taking the time to read course materials like the module or even complete relevant assignments. From there, class time is used to further discuss the lesson, share ideas, and allow students to interact in a dynamic learning environment. In this blended learning approach, face-to-face interaction is mixed with independent study, usually via technology. In a common flipped classroom scenario, students might watch pre-recorded videos at home, then come to your online class to do the homework armed with questions and at least some background knowledge. So, pag sa flipped classroom po, usually, bibigyan din natin sa kanila yung content, aaralin sa bahay, and then, usually, ang nangyayari, nagbubuo lang sila ng mga questions nila na hindi nila talaga naintindihan. And then, yun yung time na magbibigay tayo ng discussion sa mga parts na hindi nila naiintindihan. Okay? So this slide actually summarizes what a flipped classroom looks like. What task teachers can give to students to do at home, and what can teachers and students together can do when online classes start. Now, what are some strategies we can do in our online classes? Here, we present 7 variations of the flipped classroom. To start off with we start off with the standard inverted classroom. Now, in this format, students prepare by watching short explanatory tutorial videos or read the required materials prior to the online class. They then prepare, practice key concepts, doing exercises, debating in class with personalized feedback. So after the class, students review what they learned and expand their knowledge. Since this is a flipped classroom, this is a blended learning approach. So we will utilize both asynchronous and synchronous instructions. So as an example of what can we do if we use the standard inverted classroom, we can assign the module as their reading material. Example lang po ito. Pwede yung module bigyan natin as a reading material and give instructions on what should they accomplish prior to class. Teachers may include answering the pre-test or utilize the 3-2-1 method. I know some of you are familiar with the 3-2-1 method, but ito po siya. So 3-2-1 method. So first, tell your learners to list down 3 things they learned from the module, 2 questions they still have, and 1 aspect of the lesson they enjoyed. You can utilize your FB social learning group. So pwede po tayong mag-refer ulit doon sa training na pinagawa ng SDO Caloocan on Facebook, on SDO Caloocan utilizing Facebook social learning and messenger room, kung paano po gamitin yung mga platforms na ito. Or of course, any social learning platform or asynchronous instruction you have with your learners. Alam ko po, meron kayong iba't ibang social learning platform. So pwede nyo po gamitin yon. And then, you let your learners post their outputs on the social learning platform. Then, it's the teacher's work to collectively assess the students' outputs to come up with the idea on where learners are having a hard time. Or, if the learner have no questions at all, then the teacher can compose more questions for critical thinking as a way of checking comprehension. So kung wala naman po ng tanong, edi magpasok po tayo ng ibang tanong sa kanila to check deeper understanding. Then during the online class, focus the discussion on critical points you think are necessary for the learners. You can also use Socratic method kung sa senior high, kasi mga older learners na sila. Make use of student-to-student interaction, since it is possible that some students may know the answer to some questions posted by their classmates. The benefit of using this strategy is that we can monitor the students who still haven't read the material and call their attention. The challenge here is that we also have to set deadlines for the students and ourselves for timely preparation and feedback. The next in our discussion is the discussion-oriented flipped classroom. Now, ano po ba ito? So in this strategy, teachers assign lecture videos as well as any other video or readings related to the day subject. So you can think of TED-Ed videos, YouTube videos, and other learning resources. Yung mga Khan Academy, pwede po yun. So class time is then devoted to discussion and exploration of the subject. This can be especially useful approach in subjects where context is everything. For example po, history, English, yung mga sa grade 9 and grade 10 na may mga kwento, ganyan. Or art. The discussion helps in sharing ideas derived from shown content, brainstorming, raising questions for further discussion, and clearing concepts among students. But remember, teachers, we always remind you to watch the video first before giving it to your students to counter-check the video's content and language. Baka po kasi may foul language, so kailangan ma-filter po natin yon. So dapat tayo po muna ang nagbabasa or tayo po muna ang nanonood. Baka po kasi may maling content na bigay doon sa video or doon sa material, kailangan po natin yung i-correct muna. Now, to illustrate the strategy, we can assign video lectures to students that are helpful to understand concepts presented in the module, and the teachers should make guide questions regarding the video lesson. Ito po yung mga examples na pwede nyo ibigay. So, actually, these are YouTube videos. Meron siyang pambata, meron pang high school, meron din po tayong teacher-made. So, meron po tayong mga teachers sa Caloocan na gumagawa ng video lessons na napakaganda at madaling intindihin. Then, we collect and assess learners' responses to gain insights on what our students have learned and what they So the third on the list is our what we call the demonstration focused flipped classroom. Especially for the subjects that require students to remember and repeat activities exactly. So we can think of physics or about every math class. It is most helpful to have a video demonstration to be able to rewind and rewatch. In this model, the teacher uses screen recording software to demonstrate the activity in a way that allows students to follow along at their own pace. This strategy is useful for subjects na nagre-require ng konting demonstration. For example, kami po sa math, kailangan ma-demonstrate namin sa bata yung solutions para ma-imitate nila at the very least, or sa mga science experiments. So, may video lesson on paano gagamitin ang machine na ito or ang gamit na to. So, pwede rin po, hindi naman siya video, pwede rin naman siyang lab manuals, step-by-step manuals, or manual of procedures. Yung mga ganun po. So, this is especially useful in subjects, again, like math, science, MAPE, especially sa PE, yung mga sumasayaw-sayaw. Sa TLE and TVL, yung mga nagluluto, recipe, may mga recipe naman din sa YouTube. And teaching beginning reading and writing. For yung mga maliliit na bata, para at the very least ulit, i-imitate nila yung ginagawa ng teacher, which require careful instructions to deliver content. For example, in geometry, precision is the key. So in demonstration-based classrooms, screen recording tools are used, again, to create instructional videos assigned as homework. Instead of doing this in the classroom, students can go back and forth in the video to understand concepts fully and come back to the lesson for doubt. They go to your online class for doubt removal. Now, as an example, to show how this technique works, first we assign demonstration videos, but due to our current situation, where some students may not access videos or intermittent internet connection, we can give step-by-step solutions, like in math, lab manuals for science, recipes for TVL, TLE, step-by-step process, or other manual of procedures for them to follow or imitate. So here are some examples na pwede niyong gamitin. So may lab manual, may recipe, may nagsosolve. This one ay Khan Academy. Yung unang picture is Khan Academy. This is all about nouns. So sa Khan Academy, meron din pong English. Okay. So then ask students to post on your social learning group what their questions or the part of the material they need clarifications or further examples. Then during the online class, we can focus on what the students need. So especially in math and science, teachers can use the synchronous mode to give more examples to students using this technique by utilizing other computer applications like PowerPoint, Microsoft Whiteboard, or other writing applications if your device is capable of screenwriting. So the discussion helps in sharing ideas derived from the shown content, brainstorming, raising questions for further discussion, and concepts among students. Now, the fourth one is what we call the flip classroom. Yung word na literally means false. So parang ito is false classroom. So in this technique, students are still responsible for their learning, but instead of watching the lesson or reading the required material at home, they watch or read it in your online class. This is somewhat like our traditional classroom, but since this is a flipped classroom, we do the watching or reading activities in a non-conventional way. This specific model targets young learners. Okay, so pag flip classroom, full synchronous mode siya. Okay, so as an example, we can create stations during our online class. So we divide it into stations. So the first one is, as a preparation, we can download video lessons and divide it into subtopics or smaller contents. Okay? So kung parang sa math siya at siya ay fractions, okay, pwede mo munang kapag kunwari isang buong lesson about fractions, hahatiin natin siya sa similar fractions muna, then dissimilar fractions. So, smaller contents. Then, yung first video, ibibigay natin doon sa mga students. So, give the first video to the students and let them watch it. Now, if a learner says, "Ma'am, tapos na po ako," then the teacher will give assessment to ensure comprehension or understanding. Now, if the learner passes the comprehension check, this is the time the teacher will give the next video to the learner. And this process continues until the students complete the whole video lesson. The advantage of this method is when students come to the online class, one-to-one guidance and support are provided by the teacher, and malalaman nyo na kung sino yung mga nahuhuli, sino yung mga slow learners, sino yung mga fast learners. Kasi sila yung mga sila yung medyo nahuhuli sa mga video lessons at medyo bumabagsak dun sa mga assessment nyo. So, pwede nyo nang maka one-on-one yung mga bata. Also, instead of video lessons, teacher can give printed lesson materials divided into subtopics. Now, the fifth method is called the group-based flipped classroom. So this model adds new element to help students learn from each other. So pwede pa rin po tayong mag-group-based activities or group-based instruction sa mga bata. The class starts the same way others do, with lecture videos and other resources shared before class. The shift happens when students come to class, teaming up to work together on that day's assignment. Okay, so group-based flipped classroom is a method in which students learn the primary course content outside of class and spend class time working in teams to apply that content. The teacher guides classroom activities and discussion, clarifies any difficult material through the social learning principles of guided participation and scaffolding, the teaching, and more on facilitating. In using the base flip, we can use two ways. We can use asynchronous mode, synchronous instruction, or full synchronous mode. To do this, the first thing to do is to divide the class into small groups and give clear instructions before they go to their respective meetings. But teachers note that you may have to do the advanced preparation of each group's virtual meeting place as to save time. You may utilize different platforms like this one. So Zoom, Messenger Room, pwedeng Google Meet, or bahala po kayo kung ano yung gagamitin nyo. Next is assign materials to each group. Give them time to discuss with themselves and finalize their output. Pwede na naman kung ibinigay nyo na siya beforehand. Kung full synchronous mode, ito po yung gagawin. Pero kung nag-asynchronous mode kayo, binigay nyo na yung material sa bata, and then sila na bahala. So yung 5 minutes na yan is to output. And then you can make them present their output and give feedback. You can also make their classmates ask questions or give constructive feedback. Now, the sixth one, we will not actually discuss this for a long period since this is full asynchronous method. But just to give you an idea, classroom time for tutoring is completely eliminated in this model. Educators like university professors share all the resources and allocate time for individual sessions during class hours. Assignments are collected online through LMS, yung mga LMS natin. Pwede natin gamitin yung Google Classroom. Pwede rin po yung social learning ng FB, or kung gusto magpaka-fancy, you can have Canvas instructure for students. This is free. Free lang po ito. Para siyang Google Classroom pero mas marami siyang features. And the last one is the role reversal, flip classroom. Now, ano po itong role reversal? This is sometimes called the flipping the teacher. So we know that flipped classrooms usually have students as the center point of learning as opposed to having the educator as the focal point for information. But the role reversal concept is yung bata yung gagawa ng video lessons, magde-demonstrate na understanding nila, pwede sila mag-film ng sarili nila, tapos sa kanila ipapakita sa klase. Now, ang advantage ng format na ito ay makaka-build kayo ng repository ng references or reference videos or materials for future classes. Now, the above models give us fair idea of various formats that are being used for flipping classrooms. Using these techniques, you can customize an individual format to suit your online classroom. Blended learning is all about sensible experimentation and customization according to the needs and requirements of the students. This brings us to the second part of the presentation. So the benefits and challenges using the strategy or the strategies. Now for the benefits, the first one is, of course, lecture content in the form of printed learning materials or videos of manageable length can be provided outside of the online classroom. Shorter videos have the benefit of distilling a given topic, and topics can be broken up into subtopics. So as this happens, traditional passive learning takes place outside of the classroom, and class time can be freed up to increase meaningful engagement with students. So teachers have more time to interact with students, clarify a learning point, and additional learning objectives can be incorporated as an active learning environment. So note that the flipped classroom, that the goal of this one is to create the direct instruction lessons as homework, so the class time can be saved for application of skills, collaboration, discussion, or conferencing, or even doubt removal. Next is when the traditional passive lecture component is taken out of the online classroom, the classroom has the potential to turn into a workshop that incorporates and focuses on active hands-on learning. This approach becomes a core component rather than a supplement to the lecture. As at its best, a flipped classroom offers students the benefit of greater control over their learning. Kasi po, pagdating sa flipped classroom, pag nabasa nila yung material, then saka yung mga doubts nila or yung mga points na hindi nila naiintindihan, yun na lang yung itatanong nila. Rather than magdidiscuss tayo ng mga bagay na alam na nila. So sayang yung oras. Sayang yung oras na i-focus na natin doon sa part na hindi nila naiintindihan. Next is, since class time are freed up of lectures, so yung class kung yung class time natin ay na-freed up na ng mga pagbabasa, so lectures allow for increased teacher to student and student to student interactions na. So there is also more time for extended classroom discussion and exercises. This allows student to engage with concepts, learning materials, and peers in the online class. Thus, increased student support is an implicit result of the flipped classroom. This doubles student access to teachers once with the videos at home and again in the online class. Pwede rin nating pwede rin itong opportunity for personalization and more precise guiding of learning. The next one is students are charged with coming prepared to class. And as such, their own responsibility and accountability for their own learning is increased. This also allows the students to to direct their own learning. Okay? And the last one is the flipped classroom support diversity in student learning and allow students additional time in accessing review materials if necessary. In addition to the lecture, students may reflect on materials through questions and discussions with the teacher who functions as the facilitator. They also learn by working with peers to solve problems, demonstrating, arguing, debating, uh, arguing with their own solutions, class experimentation, and other works. Now, for the challenges to this flipped classroom model, siguro naman napapansin nyo na kung ano yung pinaka-challenge. So the most obvious challenge is what if the students did not read or watch the required materials or do the preparatory task prior to the online class. So this is where the teacher's online presence is mostly needed. Combating student procrastination is not an easy task, but coordination with students and parents must be established to lessen this problem. So kailangan po talaga natin yung online presence. So kailangan pag asynchronous mode, laging pag hindi pa nakapag-post yung bata ng questions niya or nung 3-2-1 niya sa mga inyong mga social learning groups, medyo katok-katokin niyo na po yung bata. Kaya kailangan po ang online presence natin. And another issue is that students may get confused on what preparatory work to do first. Remember, the number of preparatory workloads of students is proportional to the number of their subject teachers. So, hindi na natin alam kung alin ang uunahin ng bata kung lahat tayo gagamit din ng flipped classroom. So kung nag-assign tayo ng mga lectures sa kanila, video lectures, o kaya ng mga modules to be discussed during the online class, then medyo magkakaroon tayo ng problema sa kanilang mga pagpa-prioritize. But then, to remedy this, coordination with the teachers is necessary in order to assign pre-work to a class. This is where yung kahapon na discussion on effective weekly home learning plan comes to play. So kailangan yung weekly home learning plan po natin ay talagang napag-isipan. And the last part of this presentation, so some useful tips for conducting online classes. So the first one is without your physical presence in the classroom, of course, it is vital that you establish a virtual presence at the very beginning of the e-learning course. Online teachers need to be engaging and supporting students right from the start and for the duration of the course to maintain an effective learning community. By establishing your teacher presence, you will also show students that you are both visible and available. You will also be welcoming them to the new learning community, just as you would in any traditional classroom. Engage with your learning community through online posts, forums, or social media. When people see teachers putting time into discussion and engagement, I think they will be more encouraged to participate themselves. Through this engagement, you will also develop professional relationship with your students and make their online learning experience more personal and memorable. And number 2, so we should provide clear participation guidelines. Now, to do this, we might ask ourselves these 2 questions. Number 1 is, what is the purpose of your online discussion? Ito bang online discussion mo ay para makinig lang sa'yo yung mga bata at manood? Para ba ito mag-present sila ng kanilang output? Ito ba ay platform mo para makapagbigay pa ng other examples? Ito ba ay platform mo para masagot ang kanilang mga tanong, or platform mo rin ba ito para sa recitation? So tipong mga ganon. So ano ba talaga ang purpose ng iyong online discussion? Kasi maikli lang ang oras natin, kailangan define ang iyong purpose. The next one is, what would good participation looks like. So pay attention to the tone of the messages that you post. We should try to be both professional and informal. We should establish an environment of mutual respect and comfort while avoiding the sense of intimidation to the students. Kasi pag ganon, we can invite intimidation, so hindi na sila magpa-participate masyado, lalo na kung hindi sila nagpa-participate dati sa inyong traditional classroom, mas lalo na din sa inyong online class kung na-intimidate na sila. Kung yung online class niyo masyadong formal. Okay? So again, mga bata pa rin sila. So number 3 is show students how to participate. So as teachers, we should model how to participate. Paano gagawin to? Number 1, we should ask good questions. So when students ask questions that invite multiple complex interpretations, open higher order thinking questions, they spark more responses and more substantive discussion. Sadly, students may be more used to answering right answer recall questions. And so they may, when prompted, ask this same kind of close lower order thinking questions that can block further discussions. So, para magawa yun, kailangan take up what some else has written. So kailangan medyo sensitive tayo sa mga sinulat, medyo attentive tayo dun sa mga sinulat ng mga naunang mga post, sa mga naunang mga post. Kasi pwedeng doon tayo makakuha ng sequence ng ating discussion sa ating class. Tsaka doon na rin tayo makakakuha ng yung mga thought-provoking questions. Okay? Lalo na kung yung mga bata ay medyo may mga bata kasi talagang mga matatalino din. So gamitin niyo yung talino nila sa pagtatanong. Okay? So keep the discussion alive, prevent stagnancy. Dito, periodically post acknowledgement message to the participants' comments even if you don't have anything elaborate to contribute. Kapag meron din naman talagang magandang sinabi ang bata, yung simpleng interesting idea, good example, I agree. Ganyan, yung mga ganung messages or similar message that can provide online equivalent of eye contact, yun yung let us communicate to them na ganon. Okay? But be aware of the time. Participants do not tend to check the discussion board as frequent as the facilitators do. So as part of your role as a facilitator, make sure that the discussion breaks do not last too long. So yung walang pauses. Wag masyadong mahaba yung pause. If you keep the discussion alive and stimulating, your participants will have an incentive to check more frequently. Okay. And keep the discussion on topic. Wag lalabas sa topic. And again, wag po masyadong yung mga comments po ng bata, wag masyadong ilalagay sa personal message, wag ipapa-PM. As much as possible, pakilagay po ito sa inyong comment box na nakikita ng lahat. Kasi para hindi ma-dilute yung discussion board ng too much private one-on-one communication at para matuto po ang lahat. So keep the discussions on track, restraint in deviations. If the comment drift off topic, be creative. Kayo na pong bahala kapag medyo lumilihis na yung estudyante, be creative. Pwedeng use subtle or humorous messages, perhaps a humorous graphic or photo to redirect the discussion. Mag-send lang kayo ng PM kung talagang necessary. Okay. Number 4 is make your audience, make sure that the audience and the content are in sync. Ask feedback from the students. and provide constructive feedback to students. So medyo kampiyan natin kapag nasa online class na, baka hindi na naiintindihan ng bata ang ginagawa natin, tuloy lang tayo ng tuloy. Or pag yung bata hindi na masyadong pag yung bata may mali na ginagawa, kailangan may constructive feedback pa tayo sa kanila. Or syempre kung yung mga bata ay may magandang ginagawa, then magbigay din tayo ng praise. This mapopromote nito yung peer engagement. Okay? And the last one is, it is valuable to provide the we are all together moments to segue from one session or course assignment to the next. These pauses help to keep the participants united as they establish a collective understanding of what they have completed and what they are about to do. So kung meron kayong debate, meron kayong discussion, please bago kayo pumunta sa susunod na topic, bring closure to it. Pwedeng i-summarize ang topic para ma-provide yung closure. Pwede rin namang mag-moderate. Pwede kayong maging moderator, pwede kayong mag-guide, pwede kayong maging prompter, or pwede kayong maging mediator. Now, to summarize the presentation, there is no one-size-fits-all model. Kahit sa undergraduate, sa college, or sa master's nagtuturo ng online classes, wala pong one-size-fits-all model in facilitating online classes. So every classroom is different with different levels of access to technology, different levels of motivation on the part of the students, and different technological know-how on the part of the teachers. So when using the online classroom, there is more effort needed on the part of both learners and teachers to prepare materials and video lessons before a lesson. Lecture, class, or session takes place in comparison to the traditional model. So this ends my presentation. I hope you learned something from this, and I hope if you have something to ask, clarify, or share about this presentation, let's discuss it later on the open forum. Thank you very much for listening.